And we're talking about a seascape where there's nothing between you and America but the Atlantic. He says West Burrowfirth is a name attached to two neighbouring West Mainland locations, neither of which seems all that much in need of a name. Of course, West Burrowfirth is the modern name, whereas the Viking name for this place was Borgarfjord, which is Borgarfjord, the fjord, the inlet where the Broch is. And if you visit there, you could go to Jorun's beach, and like my uncles, you could play in the ruins of the Broch by wading through the sea at low tide and taking possession of the old property. But you might not come down from the Picts, because the people you derive from are more of Viking stock.
Yeah.
Vikings who in some cases came directly from Norway and Denmark to the Shetlands. Probably put a reference in there passing on an adjuration that I got from my mother, which I got many times over, and that was because she was a Laudenson, but of course her mother was a Sinclair.
Right.
And what she said was, Alistair, never forget that you are a Sinclair. She was born above the village of Sanus.
Right, and I recognise that
name.
Sanus,
Yes. Sanus. And relatives of yours are buried in the churchyard, Church of Scotland churchyard at Melby. They're looking across the Sound to Papa Stewart. If you take the headland, go onto the Neen's headland, the local people, when they greet you, will say, you'll be a Laudenson, because you want to visit the heir of Colwick.
And that is Laurenson country.
Yes. Papa Stewart, the name refers to severely Christian missionaries, I think, the island of the priests.
Right.
There. But latterly there was a busy fishing station, and the fishing lands were up at the Half, out in the sea area here, where people had to come in to negotiate the skerries. The V skerries out here. The Shetland chair is probably made, certainly made, of wreckage wood from ships that never survived. So the bits of wood that constitute the chair were hand-picked off the beach. Now, you have to understand the Viking Empire way of things and what was called the Old Sea Road. There was a Viking Empire before there was a Greek Empire and a Roman Empire. And it was done by sea trails and tracks, And of course the history of it is well authenticated. They possessed the Isle of Man, they fought battles down the west coast, they had possession of Lancashire, they had possession of York and Yorkshire.
Yeah.
England was divided there and was under the Danelaw at one time. So this was actually sort of a very, very powerful tradition. And one of the proofs of the lingering of the old way of things was in the way that people were named.
Yeah.
Lawrenson comes from son of Lawrence, but there might be a Lawrence who was actually the son of James, and so he would be like Peter Jimison, mentioned in here as having founded the woolen mill that Anne and I visited, and I had a talk with Peter Jimison. He remembered. I only have to say my granny stayed up the hill, and her dad was drowned. Oh, he said that would be John Lawrenson, and he named the year date.
Yeah.
My grandfather must have been a tragic man because he was the last captain, skipper of the family boat, the True Love. It wasn't a six-un, it was a yawl-rigged sailing boat, quite a big boat, and required a crew of cousins usually, and the Lawrensons and Sinclair cousins were very good at working with one another, and in its prime the True Love would be a fine family boat, and John Lawrenson's craft in the air of Colwick was famously self-sufficient and never needed help from other people. Round about the year 1700, there was a man called Lawrence who came from Norway. He would be a seagoing man, and he stayed in Shetland, and he and his immediate descendants really they prospered at that time, obviously, and Union and Match and all the rest of it, and so there was quite a descendancy from that. But one of the early marriages was to a woman whose surname was either Dowell or MacDowell, and who was actually one of Oliver Cromwell's lot, who built Fort Charlotte in Lerwick. And Dowell, as he is known, became a landowner, and he would be the landowner, I think, who gave the first Lawrenson who formed the croft of Colwick permission to set up a croft, according to the custom at the time, which was that he could enclose as much land as he himself, single-handed, could put a dike or recognised boundary around inside 7 days.
Gosh, was that the rule?
He could either do it himself and have 7 days to it, or he could have the help of another 6 men, 7 men for 1 day.
For 1 day.
And when I show you the aerial photograph of the croft of Colwick, you will be able to see the line of the dike that was set down. And he used a lochen boundary, and he used a stream, and he used another inlet. It's quite a handsome area of land. It's not huge, but as crofts go, it's quite a big land. And that was a territory over which my granny presided when her man was away at the Half fishing. And you needed a big family to help do that. So that's why there were families of 7 and 8
Yeah.
and so on.
So that's where your mother grew up.
That's where my mother grew up. Yeah, she was second in a family of 7.